Good morning. It is time for the NFL Week 16 edition of the Island Report. It is Christmas Eve 2020. One more week until we can say good riddance to 2020. This week we are going to preview the NFL Week 16 and also talk about the return to play of the NHL. Yes, we're going to start with NHL first. NHL is returning to play on January 13th, 2021. There will be new divisions due to the obvious reasons of the border closure between the United States and Canada. And second of all, we will see all the divisions. Each teams in each division will only play within their divisions for this 56 game schedule coming up in 2021. We are going to start off with the North Division, which is also the Canadian Division. You'll have Calgary, Edmonton, Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto, and Vancouver, and Winnipeg. The East, you will have the Bruins, the Sabres, the Devils, the Islanders, the Rangers, the Flyers, and the Capitals all make up the 8-team East Division of the NHL. The Central Division, the Hurricanes, the Blackhawks, the Blue Jackets, the Stars, the Red Wings, the Panthers, the Predators, and the Lightning. And then the West Division, the Ducks, the Coyotes, the Avs, the Kings, the Wild, the Sharks, the Blues, and the Vegas Golden Knights. We have a couple of the NHL teams that might have to play somewhere else due to public health issues. British Columbia, the Vancouver Canucks might have to play in Edmonton due to COVID-19 restrictions in British Columbia as of right now. You've got the San Jose Sharks. Luckily, their schedule's set up where they don't play a home game until February. So hopefully by then, Santa Clara County could be open for contact sports and the Sharks can play at SAP. Option B for the Sharks is starting to look like Gila River Arena in Glendale, if need be. And if, say, COVID gets worse or whatnot, you could see hub cities if we see more restrictions on cities and stuff. Hopefully not, but I'm looking forward to hockey. Game on. And then when it comes to playoffs, it will be all divisional for the first two rounds. Playoffs will go 1 through 4 in each division. 1 versus 4, 2 versus 3. That'll be your first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. The second round, it will be the two winners will go up against each other so they can avoid having to go cross borders until the third round. And then I don't know how the third round's going to work out, but it's probably going to work out like a top 4 overall between the 4 teams when we get to the finals and you get to the Stanley Cup finals. So you don't have a U.S. team playing a Canadian team until the third round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. By then, I think the borders should be open. Players should be getting vaccinated by then. By then, too, the vaccine will be very close to being available to the general public. Probably by the playoffs, you'll have fans back in the majority of the arenas. So that's good news there. But game on to hockey. I just want to give you guys, hockey's coming back June 13th. Game on. Even if it's going to be a baseball-like schedule where you're only playing teams within your division for 2021. Now on to NFL Week 16. Let me get the lines up. The first game, of course, will be tomorrow. Yes, there is football on Christmas Day on Fox tomorrow. It will be the New Orleans Saints against the Minnesota Vikings. I expect Drew Brees to have a better game this week. Alvin Kamara's back. This will be a good game for the Saints defense to get right. The Saints are the 7-point favorites. If Minnesota loses this game this week, Minnesota will be mathematically eliminated from playoff contention. But you've got Kirk Cousins and of course Dalvin Cook. I don't think that's going to be enough to beat the Saints. I think Brees is going to be back. He's going to send a message. I think the Saints are going to look to get revenge on Minnesota for that playoff loss last year. Saints are going to win. Saints are going to cover. In Detroit at Ford Field Saturday morning on NFL Network, you've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers against the Detroit Lions. The Bucks, the overwhelmingly 9.5-point favorites in this game. Tampa Bay barely survived an upset scare against Atlanta. Whereas you've got a Lions team that is likely heading for culture change in 2021. I don't know if even Matthew Stafford is going to Matthew Stafford right now is looking like he's going to start, but I think that they should sit him and go with Chase Daniel. No, Daniel's not a better quarterback, but you just got to put Matthew Stafford on ice at this point. Detroit's going to have to field offers for Matthew Stafford. Detroit needs to tear this team down to the bolts. Tampa Bay, they're going to win easily this game. I think they're going to win. They're going to cover. At this point, Tampa is looking for the 5 seed. Oh, by the way, yeah, never mind. I'll get to the Saints. But yeah, with the Saints game, yeah, I think the Saints, 2 wins, they lock down the 2 seed. But I think Tampa, they get this win, they'll be 1 game closer to locking down the 5 seed in week 17. Tampa wins, Tampa covers. The next game, the San Francisco 49ers against the Arizona Cardinals. San Francisco starting C.J. Beathard this week. The backup is Josh Rosen, acquired from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers practice squad after Josh Johnson was placed on the COVID list. It's also looking like George Kittle is going to play this game, which I don't like. I think any starter that is even barely hurt should not be playing. San Francisco needs to be playing for that seed. I don't think it's going to matter. Mostert's not playing. Mostert's out, so it's likely going to be Jeff Wilson Jr. getting the majority of the snaps. Arizona, they are getting right at the right time. Arizona's scheme has given the Niners defense issues, and I don't expect that to change in this game. Kyler is getting right at the right time. Kenyon Drake's getting going. This could be a really good game for Kenyon Drake. This could also be a very good game for Hopkins, too, I think. Yeah, this should be a really good game for DeAndre Hopkins. Cardinals are the 5-point favorites. Cardinals are going to win. They're going to cover. San Francisco's pretty much just riding the string at this point. The Miami Dolphins on Saturday night on the NFL Network against the Las Vegas Raiders. Miami getting over a big win over the Raiders. Getting a big win over the Patriots last week, where Tua wasn't great, but he was good enough in this game. The Raiders' defense is bad. The Raiders are reeling. Last week, they had a good game from Marcus Mariota, really stepped in really good. And it looks like Mariota could be on the trade block, or Derek Carr. Do we have a quarterback controversy? I think it's going to be Mariota starting this game. It's not going to matter. I think if it's Mariota, he is going to fall back to earth this week against a very good Miami Dolphins defense. Mariota looked great against the Los Angeles Chargers defense that is ass. It's not going to matter. I think the Dolphins defense is going to shut down the Raiders this week. Tua is going to have one of his best games. Ahmed's going to have one of his best games. And Miami could start smelling the playoffs. Miami's going to get the win. Miami, the 3-point favorites. Miami wins. Miami covers. And you got Chicago against Jacksonville. Chicago trying to keep their playoff hopes alive against the Gardner Minshew-led Jaguars. Minshew, probably one more game away from being a backup. Jaguars, 2 losses away from getting the prize of the draft in Trevor Lawrence. Chicago has looked much better with Mitch Trubisky at quarterback. David Montgomery has done great running the football. I don't think that the Jags are going to have an answer. Chicago's going to cruise. Chicago, the 7.5-point favorites. Chicago wins. Chicago covers. In the game of the week at Heinz Field, you've got the Indianapolis Colts against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Indianapolis right now with the 5 seed. Indianapolis can clinch a playoff berth this week with a win and a All right. Colts can clinch a playoff berth with a win and a Ravens loss, or a win and a Dolphins loss. Those are the 2 scenarios the Colts can get a win. Colts are playing hot at the right time. Big Ben has really struggled in the last few games for the Steelers. Big Ben is turning into a pumpkin late in the season. Defense injuries are starting to show for the Pittsburgh defense. Pittsburgh is reeling. And you've got a Colts team that is red hot. They're going to be able to shut down Connor. They're going to be able to shut down. If Pittsburgh wins, Pittsburgh clinches the NFC, clinches one of their last 2 games. They win the AFC North. If Pittsburgh loses and Cleveland wins this week, they head for a showdown, likely heading for NBC next week. And I think we're going to be one part of the way there. Indy wins. Indy gets the win. The New York Giants versus the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens, the 10.5-point favorites. The Ravens have looked much better in the last 2 weeks, whereas the Giants have fallen back to where they should be at this point. A loss by the Giants will likely it's looking like Daniel Jones is going to be back for this game, and it's time for Daniel Jones to shine. But the bad news is they are going up against a very good Ravens defense. Lamar's looked much better the last few games. I think this is going to be another win for the Ravens. They're going to win. I don't know if they're going to cover the 10-point spread, though. That is another question to be remained, as the Giants have a good defense. So I do think that. So I don't think that's going to happen, but I do think the Ravens are going to win this game, which could leave them on the brink of elimination after Giants 5-9. Yes, a loss for a New York Giants loss this week. They will be mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. And yes, I think the Ravens win. The Giants will be eliminated this week from playoff contention. You've got the Kansas City Chiefs, the 10.5-point favorites over the Atlanta Falcons. Falcons almost upset the Buccaneers. Then, of course, the defense did what they normally do in the second half. Roll over and play dead. Kansas City. They're great when the switch is on. That is the problem with the Chiefs. They have to flip they don't play 4 quarters of a game. But they'll just turn on a switch, all of a sudden they're good. You can't play to stop Patrick Mahomes. You can just try to play to slow him down at this point. Kansas City wins. Kansas City will be the 1 seed. And Raheem Morris, slowly seeing him lose the interim job at this point. And you know, we'll see what happens. I think it's going to be Chiefs are going to win. Chiefs are going to cover. And the road to the AFC, to the Super Bowl in the AFC side is going to have to go through Arrowhead. Give me Kansas City. Next up, the Cleveland Browns against the New York Jets. Browns, the 9.5-point favorites. The Jets surprised everybody and actually won a game. Wow. Is Sam Darnold and the Jets good enough to get 2 wins? No. Not this time. I think this is fiction. I think this time the Browns are a better team than the Rams. Cleveland is playing their greatest football right now. This will be a great game for Nick Chubb, Baker Mayfield. They're going to put on a clinic. The Browns' defense has looked better for the most part, except the Baltimore game. Stefanski is a runner for Coach of the Year. Browns are going to win. Browns are going to cover. Browns can clinch a playoff berth this week with a win and either a Ravens loss or a Dolphins loss. Probably won't happen this week, but the Browns will be 1 win away from the playoffs. Browns will set up a showdown with Pittsburgh next week on NBC. Next game, the Bengals and the Texans. Texans, the 7.5-point favorites. Houston, these are 2 teams that are pretty much riding out the string. You've got Ryan Finley going up against Deshaun Watson. Watson will be good. Deshaun Watson will have a good game this week. Cincinnati will fall back to earth. The Texans should win this one. I'm not confident they'll cover, though. In Los Angeles, the Denver Broncos against the LA Chargers. Denver got blown out last week by the Bills. The Chargers have won 2 in a row. Will the Chargers make it 3 in a row? You know, it's going to depend which Drew Lock shows up. It's going to come down to which Denver defense shows up this week. Denver is not, I don't think Denver is that bad. I think if Denver could get to somewhere around 7-9, I think Denver has a good opportunity to get to 7-9 at this point. Drew Lock may not be a. We don't know a lot about Drew Lock. Could you? What? There's a lot of what ifs with Drew Lock. What if Drew Lock had stayed healthy? The biggest what if there. What if Von Miller was around this year? I still think Denver's on the right track. Chargers are on the right track. Next year, this will be a very fun AFC West between two up-and-coming teams next year. But that's next year. But these are two teams with bright futures. I'm going Denver. Denver to upset here. Denver looks like the better team than the Chargers right now. I just have that feeling the Broncos are gonna get the win this week. And then at FedEx, you've got the Washington football team against the Carolina Panthers. Washington wins. They clinch the NFC East. Question is, who will be starting at quarterback this week? Will Alex Smith be healthy enough to play quarterback? Will it be Dwayne Haskins? Could it be Taylor Heineke? Haskins was fined and lost his captaincy due to violating COVID protocol yet again. Dwayne Haskins is a bum and will likely be cut after this season. Washington is may not have to be able to put up a lot of points against Carolina. Carolina back to playing Mike Davis. Teddy Bridgewater has regressed a bit in the last few games. I feel like this is going to be a very low-scoring game, but I think Washington has the defense to win the game. Give me Washington. Washington locks up the NFC East this week. In Dallas, you've got the Philadelphia Eagles against the Dallas Cowboys. Philadelphia, the 2-point favorites. The Philadelphia offense looks a lot better under Jalen Hurts. Hurts can run. Hurts can pass. Hurts is a good quarterback. Dalton has looked better in the last few weeks. The Dallas defense has shown up in the last 2 weeks. But I feel like Philly, the 2-point favorites, Philly's going to win this game. And both Philly, it's not going to matter, as I feel like both teams will be eliminated. The loser of this game will be mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. And I think Philly gets the win. Dallas is eliminated this week. Another big game of the week, the Seattle Seahawks against the Los Angeles Rams. LA took game 1 down in LA. Seattle's defense has looked better in the last few weeks. Granted, it's against bad offenses, but Goff has not looked great the last few weeks. They will be without Cam Akers this week. That's going to hurt. So the Rams offense is now going to have to be Darrell Henderson. Cam Akers out with the ankle injury this week, which means it'll be Darrell Henderson this week. Seattle, they win the NFC West. And now Seattle's look better now that they're using the run game more. Who wins? Rams win if they're able to shut down the run and force Russell Wilson to beat him with his arm. Seattle wins if Henderson can have a bad game and Goff continues to play mediocre. Edge, Seattle. I'm going to take Seattle in this game. Pete Carroll's going to have this team fired up. Seattle's going to lock down the West this week. Give me Seattle. And a potential shootout on Sunday Night Football this week against the Tennessee Titans against the Green Bay Packers. This has all of the makings of a shootout. Tannehill versus Rodgers. Both defenses are bad. Game is in Lambeau. Question is, how can Tannehill and Derrick Henry do at Lambeau? Yes, Green Bay's defense has looked a bit better the last few weeks, but I don't think it's going to matter. I think now this is going to be a game where Green Bay wins. Green Bay is in. A Tennessee loss could put them on the outside looking in. Tennessee to clinch this week would need a win, and of course, losses by the Ravens and the Dolphins. I don't think that's going to happen. But now it could come down to Baltimore and Tennessee for that final spot. I think Green Bay wins. They're going to be the road to the Super Bowl in the NFC. We'll have to go through Lambeau, and the Rams and the Packers will win a shootout to set up and Green Bay locks down the 1 seed this week. And the final game of the week, the Buffalo Bills against the New England Patriots. Buffalo firing on all cylinders at the right time. Buffalo, the 7-point favorites, heading to Foxborough. New England would love to play spoiler at this point. Buffalo looking to lock down the 2 seed at this point. This is going to be a very fun matchup here. Who is going to win? I think it's going to be Buffalo. Problem is, who's going to start this week for the Patriots? Is it going to be Cam? Or is it going to be Jarrett Stidham? I think at this point, the Patriots should start Stidham. Cam is not the solution in New England anymore. New England's likely limping to a 7-9 season. It's time to see what you've got in Jarrett Stidham the last 2 games. But it's not going to matter who starts at quarterback this week for the Patriots. It's going to be all Bills all the time. Bills win, Bills cover. And that will conclude it for week 16. We'll recap on Sunday night. Everybody have a Merry Christmas. Please keep your gathering small. Let's get the Rona down. Good night. Good afternoon, everybody.